The alien council chamber erupted in chaos the moment Commander Jake Holland slammed his fist on the crystalline table hard enough to crack it. "Enough," he said, his voice quiet but sharp enough to slice through the din of chittering, buzzing, and warbling that filled the room. The Velkari ambassador, a towering insectoid creature with mandibles that clicked incessantly, turned three of its compound eyes toward him. "You dare interrupt the proceedings, human? Your species has been granted audience as a courtesy, nothing more." Jake's jaw tightened. Behind him, Lieutenant Sophie Grant shifted her weight, hand drifting toward her sidearm. The 7 other species represented in the council had been talking in circles for 6 hours. 6 hours of diplomatic doublespeak while human colonies burned. "Curtsy?" Jake stepped forward. "You call it courtesy while the Kryn Armada glasses another one of our settlements? While you sit here debating trade sanctions that won't even take effect for another solar cycle? The Mathoran delegate, a gelatinous mass that pulsed with bioluminescent indignation, burbled through its translator. "The proper channels must be observed. Your species is young. You do not understand the delicate balance of galactic politics." Delicate balance. Jake's laugh was cold. 70,000 civilians died on New Haven yesterday. Men, women, children. But please, continue debating your protocols. The Velkari clicked its mandibles in what passed for dismissal. The Kryn claimed territorial dispute. These matters require careful arbitration over years, perhaps decades. This is how civilized species conduct themselves. Sophie spoke up, her voice tight with barely controlled fury. "Civilized species watch genocide happen and call it procedure." "You overstep, Lieutenant?" The Metheron pulsed. "Perhaps if humanity had not expanded so aggressively into contested space, the Kryn would not have been provoked." The temperature in Jake's veins dropped to absolute zero. Around the chamber, the other species continued their murmuring, their posturing, their endless bureaucratic dance while humans died light years away. "I see." Jake's hand moved to his comm device. "Then we're done here." The Velkari's antennae twitched. "The Council has not dismissed you." "No," Jake said, already turning toward the exit. "We're dismissing you." "All of you? You cannot simply leave negotiations," the Mathoran protested. Sophie was already at the door, holding it open. Jake paused at the threshold and looked back at the assembled aliens. These ancient species who had ruled the galaxy for millennia before humanity ever touched the stars. "We asked for your help. You gave us paperwork. We asked for justice. You gave us committees." His eyes were hard as diamonds. "Now you're about to learn what happens when you mistake human patience for human weakness." The door sealed behind them with a hiss of pressure equalization. In orbit above the Council world, the human fleet was already moving. The alien Council chamber erupted in chaos the moment Commander Jake Holland slammed his fist on the crystalline table hard enough to crack it. "Enough," he said, his voice quiet but sharp enough to slice through the din of chittering, buzzing, and warbling that filled the room. The Velkari ambassador, a towering insectoid creature with mandibles that clicked incessantly, turned three of its compound eyes toward him. "You dare interrupt the proceedings, human? Your species has been granted audience as a courtesy, nothing more." Jake's jaw tightened. Behind him, Lieutenant Sophie Grant shifted her weight, hand drifting toward her sidearm. The 7 other species represented in the council had been talking in circles for 6 hours. 6 hours of diplomatic doublespeak while human colonies burned. "Courtesy?" Jake stepped forward. "You call it courtesy while the Kryn Armada glasses another one of our settlements? While you sit here debating trade sanctions that won't even take effect for another solar cycle?" The Mathoran delegate, a gelatinous mass that pulsed with bioluminescent indignation, burbled through its translator. "The proper channels must be observed. Your species is young. You do not understand the delicate balance of galactic politics." Delicate balance. Jake's laugh was cold. 70,000 civilians died on New Haven yesterday. Men, women, children. But please, continue debating your protocols. The Velkari clicked its mandibles in what passed for dismissal. The Kryn claimed territorial dispute. These matters require careful arbitration over years, perhaps decades. This is how civilized species conduct themselves. Sophie spoke up, her voice tight with barely controlled fury. "Civilized species watch genocide happen and call it procedure? You overstep, Lieutenant," the Mathoran pulsed. "Perhaps if humanity had not expanded so aggressively into contested space, the Kryn would not have been provoked." The temperature in Jake's veins dropped to absolute zero. Around the chamber, the other species continued their murmuring, their posturing, their endless bureaucratic dance, while humans died light years away.
"I see."
Jake's hand moved to his comm device. "Then we're done here." The Velkari's antennae twitched. "The Council has not dismissed you." "No," Jake said, already turning toward the exit. "We're dismissing you. All of you. You cannot simply leave negotiations," the Metheron protested. Sophie was already at the door, holding it open. Jake paused at the threshold and looked back at the assembled aliens, these ancient species who had ruled the galaxy for millennia before humanity ever touched the stars. "We asked for your help. You gave us paperwork. We asked for justice. You gave us committees." His eyes were hard as diamonds. "Now you're about to learn what happens when you mistake human patience for human weakness." The door sealed behind them with a hiss of pressure equalization. In orbit above the Council world, the human fleet was already moving. Jake and Sophie strode through the corridor of the Council station, their boots echoing against polished floors that had witnessed 10,000 years of peaceful deliberation. Behind them, alarms began to wail. "Sir, they're hailing us," Sophie said, glancing at her wrist display. "The Velkari are demanding we return to the chamber." "Let them demand." Jake tapped his comm. "Holland to Fleet Admiral Carson. Execute Protocol Midnight." The response came immediately. "Confirmed, Commander. All ships moving to jump coordinates. Estimated time to Kryn space, 4 hours. Sophie's eyes widened slightly, but she didn't break stride. "Sir, we're really doing this without Council approval? Without sanctions or declarations, or without watching more humans die while bureaucrats debate?" Jake cut her off. "Yeah, Sophie, we're really doing this." They reached the docking bay where their shuttle waited. The station's diplomatic staff, a mixture of species Jake no longer cared to differentiate, scattered from their path. Word was spreading fast. As the shuttle detached and accelerated toward the human fleet, Sophie pulled up tactical displays. "The Kryn have 47 warships in the sector. Our fleet has 32. Numbers don't tell the whole story." Jake studied the formations taking shape on the screen. The human vessels were smaller, newer, built with technologies the older species had long since abandoned as too volatile, too dangerous, too uncivilized. Humanity had been in space for barely 2 centuries. The Kryn Empire had conquered star systems for 20,000 years, but the Kryn had grown comfortable, complacent. They fought their wars with the measured precision of a species that had forgotten what desperation felt like. Humans remembered. Fleet Admiral Vincent Carson's face appeared on the comm screen, his gray eyes reflecting the glow of his ship's bridge displays. "Commander Holland, I take it the Council was predictably useless? They wanted us to file a formal grievance and wait for a tribunal that might convene in 5 years. Jake's voice was flat. "New Haven's ashes are still warm, and they're talking about trade embargoes." Carson's expression hardened. "Then it's time we remind the galaxy why Earth's predators survived the Ice Age. All ships are armed and ready. We've pulled every combat-capable vessel from patrol duty. This is everything we have, Jake. It'll be enough. The Kryn won't expect this. No species has launched an offensive campaign without Council approval in 3,000 years." "Good." Jake leaned forward. "What's our asset placement?" Carson pulled up a star map. "We have stealth recon drones throughout Kryn territory. They've been mapping defense grids for the past 8 months, just in case diplomacy failed." Sophie raised an eyebrow. "We've been planning this." "We've been planning for every contingency," Carson corrected. "The Kryn hit 6 colonies in the past year. Each time the Council told us to be patient. Each time we prepared for the possibility that patience would run out." He paused. "I just never thought we'd actually do it." "The Council thinks we're young and reckless," Jake said. "They think we'll back down when we realize the political cost. And when we don't?" Jake's smile was predatory. Then they learned what happens when you corner something that evolved by hunting mammoths and saber-toothed tigers. The Kryn think they're apex predators because they've conquered 100 worlds. We became apex predators before we invented the wheel. The shuttle docked with the UHS Valiant, humanity's newest carrier. The deck hummed with activity as crews prepped fighters and loaded weapons that made the Council's civilized species uncomfortable. Railguns that accelerated projectiles to percentages of light speed, nuclear-pumped X-ray lasers. This, kinetic penetrators wrapped in metamaterials that twisted sensor readings into gibberish. War crimes by galactic convention. Standard equipment for humans. Lieutenant Commander Derek Price met them at the airlock, his expression grim. "Sir, we're getting coded transmissions from the other species. The Velkari are threatening economic sanctions. The Mathoran are calling us warmongers. The Southian are formally requesting we stand down." "Acknowledged," Jake said, moving past him. "Ignore all of them." On the bridge, the main display showed the human fleet assembling. 32 ships against an empire. Madness by any conventional measure. But humans had never been conventional. "All vessels report ready," the tactical officer announced. Jump drives spooled, weapons hot. Carson stood from his command chair. "Send a message to every human colony, every outpost, every ship in our space. Tell them what we're doing and why." "Sir?" "Tell them that we're done asking permission to defend ourselves. Tell them that we're done pretending the galaxy's rules apply to species that won't lift a finger to help us." His voice carried across the bridge. "Tell them that humanity just declared war." The fleet jumped. Space twisted, compressed, and released them 4 hours later at the edge of Kryn space, where a species that had never known fear was about to learn it from teachers who'd perfected the art over millions of years of evolution. The Kryn Defense Station, designated Outpost Theta, 9 had stood guard over the Empire's outer territories for 6 centuries. Its sensors detected the human fleet 3 seconds before the first railgun salvo turned its shields into incandescent plasma. Commander Jake Holland watched from the Valiant's bridge as the massive station broke apart, its debris field spreading like shrapnel from a grenade. No warning, no hail, no demands for surrender. The Kryn had shown New Haven no mercy. They would receive none in return. "Enemy response?" Carson asked, his voice steady despite the enormity of what they'd just initiated. Scrambling, Lieutenant Sophie Grant reported from her tactical station 15 Kryn warships breaking orbit from the nearest planet, 20 more moving from the inner system. "Show me their formation." The display flickered to life, showing Kryn vessels arranged in their traditional battle configuration. Elegant. Efficient. Develop over millennia of warfare against species that fought by the same ancient rules. Humanity's formations looked like chaos by comparison. Ships scattered across 3 dimensions, no apparent structure, vessels darting in seemingly random directions. The Kryn commander probably thought humans were panicking. That assumption lasted exactly 40 seconds. "Target packages distributed," Sophie announced. "All ships acknowledge." "Execute," Carson ordered. The human fleet didn't charge forward in a glorious frontal assault. They didn't maneuver for advantageous firing positions. They simply opened fire from ranges the Kryn had likely never considered tactically viable. Railgun slugs crossed the distance at velocities that made light seem slow. The Kryn shields, designed to disperse energy weapons, did nothing against solid projectiles carrying kinetic energy equivalent to small asteroids. 3 Kryn warships exploded before they understood what was happening. "They're adapting," Sophie called out. "Adjusting shield frequencies, dispersing formation. They think we're using energy weapons." Jake's smile was cold. "Send them something to really worry about." The Valiant's fighter bays opened, and a swarm of unmanned drones poured into space. Each one carried a payload the Galactic Council had banned 800 years ago, self-replicating nanomachine clusters with one simple directive: dismantle anything not broadcasting a human IFF signal. The drones didn't need to hit their targets. They just needed to get close. A Kryn destroyer tried to intercept them with point defense lasers, vaporizing dozens. Hundreds more slipped through. When the first drone detonated, it released a cloud of microscopic machines that spread across the destroyer's hull like digital cancer. Within minutes, the ship's armor was turning to powder. "Sir, receiving multiple hails from Kryn Command," the communications officer reported. "They're demanding we cease fire and enter negotiations." "Now they want to talk," Carson muttered. "Tell them to reference their response when we asked for help at New Haven. Then cut the channel." More Kryn ships arrived, and the battle expanded across a volume of space larger than Earth's solar system. The Kryn had numbers. They had experience. They had technologies refined over epochs, but they'd never fought an enemy like this. Lieutenant Commander Derek Price coordinated the drone swarms with the precision of a conductor leading an orchestra of destruction. Wave 3 released, targeting their logistics ships. The Kryn were learning fast. They began launching electromagnetic pulses to disable the nanomachines, spacing their ships to prevent chain reactions, focusing fire on human vessels instead of the drones. But humans learned faster. Sophie's fingers flew across her console. "Sir, detecting quantum entanglement signatures? The Kryn are trying to communicate with their home fleet through Ansible relays." "Jam them," Jake ordered. "Can't jam quantum entanglement, sir. But I can do something better. What I say to you?" She looked up with a fierce grin. "I can feed them false data." Carson raised an eyebrow. "How?" "The Ansible relays are old technology, probably haven't been updated in centuries. I can splice in fake sensor readings, make them think we have 3 times as many ships as we actually do. Do it." The tide of battle shifted as Kryn reinforcements jumped in, only to find themselves facing phantom contacts that seemed to appear and disappear at random. Their tactical computers, designed for honorable warfare between civilized species, couldn't process the deception. Humans had been lying to each other since before they discovered fire. They were very, very good at it. A Kryn flagship, massive and ancient, pushed through the melee with weapons blazing. Its shields could withstand anything the human fleet threw at it. Its armor had survived wars that predated human civilization. Carson studied it for 3 seconds. "Target that flagship. Mac rounds, full salvo." "Sir, that's Emperor Valf's personal command ship," Sophie warned. "If we destroy it with him aboard, the Kryn will never negotiate peace." They should have thought of that before glassing New Haven. Carson's voice was ice. Fire. The Valiant's magnetic accelerator cannon had been built using principles borrowed from Earth's particle accelerators. It consumed enough energy to power a city, generated heat that could melt through hull plating, and required cooling systems that took up 3 full decks. It also accelerated a tungsten rod to 97% of light speed. The flagship's shields didn't disperse the impact. They simply ceased to exist. The rod punched through the ship's center mass and exited the far side, leaving a perfectly circular hole 20 meters wide. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the flagship's reactor containment failed, and the vessel became a miniature star. The remaining Kryn ships stopped firing. Across every channel, in every language, the same message repeated: "We surrender. We surrender. Cease fire. We surrender." Carson looked at Jake. "Your call, Commander. You started this." Jake thought of New Haven, WHO, of the 70,000 civilians who died while the Council debated, of every human colony that had burned while the galaxy's so-called civilized species watched and did nothing. "Tell them surrender is accepted," he said quietly, "but relay this message to every Kryn vessel, every Kryn world, and every species in the Galactic Council." He leaned forward, his reflection ghost-like in the tactical display. Humanity is done asking permission to exist. We're done begging for protection from species too comfortable to remember what survival actually costs. The Council failed us. So we'll protect ourselves. And anyone who threatens human lives from this moment forward will learn exactly what happens when you awaken something that spent 4 million years clawing its way to the top of Earth's food chain. The comm officer swallowed hard. "Message sent, sir." In the debris field of the Kryn fleet, human ships began recovery operations. Not for salvage. For survivors. Because humans understood something the galaxy had forgotten: the difference between necessary violence and pointless cruelty. They'd been ruthless in war. They would be merciful in victory. It was the mercy that would terrify the galaxy most of all. The Galactic Council reconvened in emergency session exactly 18 hours after humanity's unauthorized assault on the Kryn Empire. This time, they didn't make Commander Jake Holland wait in an antechamber. They were too afraid he wouldn't come at all. Jake stood before the assembled delegates with Lieutenant Sophie Grant at his side, neither of them showing the exhaustion from 2 days without sleep. The chamber buzzed with agitated conversation in a dozen languages, but the moment Jake cleared his throat, silence fell like a guillotine blade. "You summoned us," he said simply. The Velkari ambassador's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme distress. "Summoned? Commander Holland, you have violated every principle of galactic law. You launched an offensive war without authorization, deployed banned weapons, and killed Emperor Valve himself. Correct on all counts." Jake's expression didn't change. "Your point?" The Mathoran delegate pulsed angry red. "Our point? You have destabilized the entire sector. The Kryn Empire is in chaos. 3 vassal species are declaring independence. Trade routes are disrupted. And you stand here as if you've done nothing wrong?" "We've done exactly what needed doing," Sophie interjected. "Something none of you had the spine to do." A Salthine representative, its crystalline form chiming with indignation, projected its thoughts through the translator. "Spine? We have maintained peace in this galaxy for 3,000 years through diplomacy and patience. You humans, with your mere 2 centuries in space, think you know better?" Jake let the question hang for a moment. Then he pulled up a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. Images of New Haven appeared before and after. Thriving colony. Scorched wasteland. "This is what your peace looked like to us," he said quietly. "This is what your diplomacy accomplished. 70,000 dead while you debated proper channels." The Velkari shifted uncomfortably. Tragic, yes, but such matters require time to... "How much time?" Jake's voice cut like a razor. "How many more colonies should we have sacrificed to your process? How many more funerals should we have held while you formed committees?" "The alternative is chaos," the Mathoran argued. "If every species simply attacks those who wrong them, the galaxy descends into permanent warfare. Then maybe the galaxy needs to remember what consequences feel like." Jake advanced toward the center of the chamber. "You want to know what humans learned in our history? Bullies don't stop because you ask nicely. They stop when they realize the cost of continuing exceeds any possible gain." The Salthine chimed anxiously. "The Kryn are a major power. You cannot simply destroy them and expect no repercussions." "We didn't destroy them," Sophie said. "We shattered their fleet, occupied their outer territories, and forced surrender. Then we stopped. We could have pushed to their homeworld. We could have done to them what they did to New Haven." "But you didn't," a new voice said. Everyone turned. The speaker was a Threll, a species humanity had barely interacted with. They were old, even by galactic standards, and they rarely spoke in council. The Threll delegate moved forward on multiple legs. Its sensor stalks focused entirely on Jake. "You showed restraint. Even in your fury, you maintained control. This is not the action of mindless savages. This is calculated strategy." Jake met the alien's gaze. "We know the difference between justice and revenge. The Kryn learned their lesson. We didn't need to exterminate them to make the point." "And what point was that?" the Velkari demanded. "That humanity will defend itself. With or without your permission. With or without your approval. With or without your ancient laws that value process over lives." Jake's voice carried throughout the chamber. "We came to you as allies seeking help. You treated us like children asking for candy, so we showed you what happens when you ignore Earth's apex predators." The chamber erupted in chaotic debate. The Mathoran accused humans of warmongering. The Salthine predicted galactic collapse. The Velkari demanded sanctions and reparations. Through it all, the Threll remained silent, watching Jake with what might have been amusement. Finally, the Threll spoke again, and its translator gave the words a weight that silenced the others. "The Council faces a choice. We can punish humanity for violating our sacred laws, attempting to force them back into subservience, or we can acknowledge that our system failed them, and adapt." "Adapt to what?" The Velkari clicked. Legitimizing aggression? Adapt to reality, the Thrall replied. Humanity has proven itself capable of independent action. They have technologies we don't understand and tactics we've never seen. Most importantly, they've demonstrated something this council has lacked for centuries: the will to act decisively. The Mathoran pulsed confusion. You're defending them? I'm stating facts. The Kryn Empire attacked human colonies repeatedly. We debated. They acted. The result? The Kryn will never threaten humanity again, and every other species in the galaxy just learned that humans keep their promises, even the ones about consequences. Jake felt a shift in the chamber's atmosphere. The Thrall were opening a door, offering the council a way to save face while acknowledging the new reality. What do you propose? The Velkhari asked cautiously. Humanity becomes a protectorate council, the Thrall said. Independent authority over their own security matters. No requirement to seek council approval for defensive operations. Defensive? The Mathoran spluttered. They invaded Kryn space. After the Kryn destroyed 6 human colonies over 12 months, while this council did nothing, I call that defensive. The Thrall's sensor stalks swiveled toward Jake. But there must be conditions. Humanity must agree to limits on their expansion, regular reporting of military capabilities, and a mutual defense pact with council species who request it. Jake exchanged a glance with Sophie. This was more than they'd hoped for, but it came with strings attached. We'll need to consult with Fleet Command and civilian leadership, Jake said carefully. Of course. You have 48 hours to respond. The Thrall turned to the other delegates. And the Council has 48 hours to decide if it wants humanity as a reluctant ally or a guaranteed enemy. Choose wisely. As Jake and Sophie left the chamber, she whispered, Did we just get offered a seat at the table? More like a corner where they can watch us, Jake replied. But yeah, we scared them enough that they'd rather have us inside the tent than outside it. Behind them, the Council dissolved into furious debate. Ahead of them, the human fleet waited in orbit, weapons still hot, ready to finish what they'd started if the galaxy chose poorly. Humanity had kicked down the door. Now they'd see if the galaxy was smart enough to invite them in properly or stupid enough to try kicking back. Either way, the age of asking permission was over. Fleet Admiral Vincent Carson stood in the war room of the UHS Valiant, surrounded by holographic displays showing every human ship, station, and colony in known space. The past 48 hours had been the longest of his career, and the next few minutes would determine whether humanity became a galactic power or a galactic pariah. Commander Jake Holland and Lieutenant Sophie Grant sat across from him, along with Director Patricia Lane from the Colonial Administration and General Marcus Webb from Earth Defense Command. 5 people making a decision that would affect billions. The Thrall proposal arrived an hour ago, Lane said, pulling up the document. Full text, no hidden clauses. They're being surprisingly straightforward. That worries me more than deception would, Webb muttered. The Thrall don't do anything without 3 layers of strategy. Jake leaned forward, scanning the terms. Protectorate Council status gives us autonomy over military decisions within our recognized territories. We can defend ourselves without asking permission. That's the victory. But we have to cap our fleet expansion at current growth rates, Sophie noted, and submit to quarterly military audits by neutral council observers. They want to make sure we don't build an armada and conquer half the galaxy, Carson said. Can't say I blame them after what we did to the Kryn. There's more. Blaine highlighted another section. We're required to respond to mutual defense requests from any council species within 6 jumps of human space. They're trying to turn us into their attack dog. Or they're acknowledging what we already proved, Jake countered, that we're the only ones willing to actually fight. The council species have been peaceful for so long they've forgotten how. But the galaxy isn't all civilized. There are threats out there they can't handle with diplomacy. Webb drummed his fingers on the table. So we become the enforcers? The dangerous humans who do the dirty work while the civilized species keep their hands clean. Is that worse than being isolated and vulnerable? Sophie asked. At least this way we have formal allies and access to council resources. Carson pulled up a star map highlighting human territory in blue and council space in green. The 2 regions barely overlapped, separated by vast stretches of unclaimed systems and dangerous nebulae. "Here's what concerns me," he said. "This proposal locks us into the current political structure. The Council failed us once. What happens when they fail us again? Or worse, what happens when they order us to fight someone we have no quarrel with?" "There's a clause for that," Blaine said. Article 7. "We can refuse any mutual defense request if we determine it conflicts with human interests. But we have to justify the refusal to a neutral arbiter." "Another committee," Webb snorted. "Another delay while people die." Jake stood and walked to the viewport, staring out at the stars. Somewhere out there, human colonies were rebuilding. Survivors of New Haven were trying to piece their lives together. The Kryn were licking their wounds and probably plotting revenge. "We changed everything when we attacked the Kryn," he said quietly. "We can't go back to being the junior species that everyone ignores. But we also can't afford to make enemies of the entire galaxy." "So we accept?" Carson asked. "We counter-propose." Jake turned back to the group. "We accept protectorate status with modifications. First, we keep our fleet expansion caps, but they apply only to capital ships, not to defensive platforms or system patrol craft. Second, the military audits are mutual. We get to observe Council military capabilities in exchange. Third, we add a clause that if the Council fails to act on a verified threat to human colonies, we regain full autonomy for that specific situation." Sophie's eyes lit up. "We're giving them what they want while making sure we can't be handcuffed again." "Exactly. They get their attack dog, but the dog keeps its teeth." Lane nodded slowly. "It's reasonable enough that the Threll might accept it. Aggressive enough that we look strong. I can sell this to the Colonial Assembly." "What about Earth?" Webb asked. "The homeworld population is split on this. Half think we should withdraw from galactic politics entirely. The other half want us to conquer everything in sight." "Earth doesn't get to hide anymore," Carson said firmly. "We're in this now, for better or worse. The question is whether we're in it as equals or as subordinates." A chime interrupted them. The communications officer's voice crackled through the speakers. "Admiral Carson, urgent message from Council Space. It's the Threll delegate, requesting immediate private communication with Commander Holland." Everyone looked to Jake. "Put it through," he said. The holographic display flickered, and the Threll delegate appeared, its multiple sensor stalks swiveling to focus on Jake. When it spoke, the translator gave its words an unusual urgency. "Commander Holland, I am contacting you outside official channels because time is critical. The Council vote on your status occurs in 6 hours. But there is something you must know before you respond to our proposal." Jake's instincts prickled. "What is it?" "The Kryn are not your only problem. There is a reason the Council has maintained peace for 3,000 years, and it is not because we are enlightened. It is because we are afraid." Sophie moved closer to the display. "Afraid of what?" The Threll's stalks drooped slightly, a gesture of deep concern. "There are regions of space the Council does not patrol. Zones we avoid. Systems where ships disappear and colonies vanish without trace. We have maintained our civilization by staying within safe boundaries and hoping the things in the dark stay there." Carson's expression hardened. "You're saying there's something worse than the Kryn out there?" "Many things. Ancient things. Things that make the Kryn look like children playing with sticks." The Threll paused. "When humanity destroyed Emperor Valf's flagship, you sent a signal across the galaxy, not just to the civilized species, but to everything watching from the shadows. You announced that a new apex predator has entered the game. And that's bad because," Jake asked, though he already suspected the answer, "because predators attract challenges. The Council species have survived by being uninteresting, by avoiding conflict, by staying small and quiet. Humanity has done the opposite. You have made yourselves a target for things that have been dormant for millennia." The war room fell silent. "Why tell us this?" Lane finally asked. "Why not include it in the formal proposal?" "Because the other delegates do not want you to know. They hope that by binding you to the Council, they can use your strength against these threats without admitting they exist. They want you to be their shield without understanding what you are shielding them from." Jake felt cold anger building in his chest. "So the Council is setting us up. making us the target while they hide behind us. Some see it that way. Others genuinely believe that humanity's aggressive nature makes you suited to face these challenges. The Thrells simply believe you deserve to know the truth before you decide. What kind of threats are we talking about? Webb demanded. I cannot say more without violating Council security protocols, but I will tell you this. If you accept Protectorate status, you will eventually be asked to investigate one of the Forbidden Zones. What you find there will change your understanding of the galaxy forever. The Threll's image flickered. I must go. The other delegates will notice my absence. Whatever you decide, Commander Holland, decide with full knowledge. The galaxy is far more dangerous than it appears, and humanity has just painted a target on itself that cannot be removed. The transmission ended. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Carson laughed, a harsh sound without humor. So we kicked the Kryn's teeth in, and now every monster in the galaxy is going to want a piece of us. Outstanding. We can still refuse the proposal, Lane said. Withdraw to our own space, fortify our borders, stay out of galactic affairs, and wait for whatever's in those forbidden zones to come for us eventually? Sophie shook her head. The Threll is right. We announced ourselves. There's no going back to being invisible. Jake looked at each of them in turn. So we move forward. We accept Protectorate status with our modifications. We become the Council's weapon. And when they send us into the dark places, we go in with our eyes open and our guns loaded. You're sure about this? Carson asked. Jake thought about New Haven, about the colonies that would be built in the future, about humanity spreading across the stars, facing challenges they couldn't yet imagine. The galaxy thinks we're dangerous because we killed the Kryn fleet, he said. Let's show them what dangerous really looks like when we meet whatever's waiting in the dark. Maybe the Council species forgot how to fight. But humans remember, it's what we do best. Then we're committed, Webb said. No turning back. No turning back, Jake agreed. Send our counter-proposal to the Council. And start preparing our fleets for whatever comes next. Outside the viewport, the stars burned cold and distant, hiding secrets that had survived since before Earth's sun was born. Humanity was about to discover what happened when you disturbed things that were better left sleeping. The council chamber was different this time. The delegates had arranged themselves in a semicircle facing the human contingent, creating a clear division between old power and new. Commander Jake Holland stood with Fleet Admiral Vincent Carson, Lieutenant Sophie Grant, and Director Patricia Lane, 4 humans representing a species that had just rewritten the rules of galactic civilization. The Velkari ambassador spoke first, its mandibles clicking with barely controlled tension. The Council has reviewed your counterproposal. Your modifications are acceptable. Jake kept his expression neutral, but he felt Sophie stiffen beside him. They'd expected negotiation, argument, maybe even rejection. Immediate acceptance meant something had changed. The Threll delegate moved forward. Humanity is hereby granted Protectorate Council status with full autonomous authority over defensive operations. Welcome to the higher responsibilities of galactic civilization. There's a condition, the Mithoran pulsed, its gelatinous form shifting to angry orange. One not included in the written proposal. Here it comes, Jake thought. The Velkari continued. 3 days ago, we lost contact with Survey Station Omega, 7 in the Void Reach sector. This station has been monitoring a forbidden zone for 600 years. It stopped transmitting without warning or distress signal. Carson's jaw tightened. And you want us to investigate? We require you to investigate, the Mithoran corrected. As your first official action under Protectorate status. Consider it a test of your capabilities. A test? Sophie said flatly. You're sending us into a forbidden zone as a test. The Salthine's crystalline form chimed softly. The station housed 43 researchers from 7 species. If there is any chance they survive, we must attempt recovery. The Council's species lack the military assets for such a mission. You do not. Jake looked at the Threll, remembering their private warning. The alien sensor stalks remained perfectly still, giving nothing away. What's in the Void Reach? Jake asked. What are we walking into? The Velkari's antennae twitched. Unknown. The zone has been quarantined for 2,000 years after the predecessor's civilization vanished there. Ships that enter rarely return. Those that do report instrument malfunctions, crew madness, and encounters with phenomena that defy physics. Sounds delightful, Carson muttered. You are free to refuse, the Mythoran said, though its tone suggested otherwise. But refusal of your first mutual defense request would raise questions about the sincerity of your commitment to Council cooperation. Lane stepped forward. This is exactly the kind of manipulation we were afraid of. You're using those researchers as leverage to force us into a suicide mission. We are providing you an opportunity to demonstrate that human courage extends beyond attacking weakened empires, the Velkhari countered. The Kryn were a known enemy using conventional tactics. The Void Reach is something else entirely. Jake felt the weight of the moment. This was the real test, the one that mattered. The Council was calling humanity's bluff, seeing if their aggressive reputation was backed by genuine capability or just reckless bravado. He thought about the human colonies, the billions of people who'd looked to Earth and its military for protection. They'd started this path by refusing to be victims. Now they had to prove they could be more than just survivors. We'll do it, Jake said, but on our terms. We take a full battle group, we maintain complete tactical autonomy, and if we determine the researchers are beyond recovery, we're authorized to withdraw without Council approval. The delegates conferred briefly through channels the humans couldn't monitor. Finally, the Threll spoke. Acceptable. You depart within 24 hours. May you succeed where others have failed. The meeting concluded, and the humans filed out of the chamber. As they walked through the station's corridors, Carson pulled Jake aside. You realize they just maneuvered us into doing exactly what they wanted, the Admiral said quietly. I know, but we were going to end up in the Void Reach eventually. Better to go in prepared than have it sprung on us later. Jake paused at a viewport overlooking the fleet. Besides, this is our chance to show the galaxy that humans don't just destroy things, we can save them too. 20 hours later, the human task force assembled at the edge of the Void Reach. 12 ships, 5,000 personnel, the best technology humanity could field. The UHS Valiant led the formation with Jake and Carson on the bridge. The sector ahead appeared normal on sensors. Just empty space, distant stars, cosmic background radiation, but Jake felt something wrong with it, a wrongness that had nothing to do with instruments and everything to do with instinct. The same instinct that had kept his ancestors alive when saber-toothed cats stalked them in the dark. All ships report ready, Sophie announced from Tactical. Drives charged, weapons hot. Jump coordinates locked. Carson looked at Jake. Last chance to reconsider. The Council is watching, Jake replied. Every species in the galaxy is watching. Humanity just declared itself a major power. Now we have to prove we can handle what comes with that title, even if what comes with it kills us. Jake smiled grimly. Especially then. Better to die trying than live as cowards. That's what makes us human. Carson nodded and turned to the helm officer. Take us in. The fleet jumped. Space twisted around them, and when it resolved, they were inside the Void Reach. The sensor displays immediately went haywire, showing readings that made no sense, stars that shouldn't exist, gravity wells with no visible source, energy patterns that violated thermodynamics. And in the center of it all, Survey Station Omega, 7 intact but dark. Life signs? Jake asked. Sophie worked her console, frowning. Inconclusive. I'm getting readings, but they're fluctuating. Could be 40 people. Could be 400. Could be nothing. Only one way to find out. Jake opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships, defensive formation. Marines, prepare for station boarding. Whatever happened here, we're going to find those researchers and bring them home. That's what humans do. We don't leave people behind. As the task force moved deeper into the Void Reach, toward mysteries that had destroyed civilizations older than human history, Jake felt a strange certainty settle over him. The galaxy had tested humanity with the Kryn and found them ruthless. Now it was testing them with the unknown and would find them unbreakable. Whatever waited in the dark places of space, it was about to learn the same lesson the Kryn had learned. When you threaten humans, they don't run. They hunt, and they never, ever stop. The Valiant's engines flared bright against the cosmic dark as humanity dove headlong into the abyss, weapons ready, courage unshaken, determined to show the galaxy that Earth's children were done asking permission to be extraordinary. They would be extraordinary, whether the galaxy liked it or not.